Alright, here we are on our first garden walk of 2020. Right now we just have a bit of compost in this bed that we're working with, and we'll get that put out. A little rain gauge to see how much rain we've gotten in the last couple of days. Got a little bit of lemon thyme ready to go in there in the front. Those are some daylilies on both sides of that stone. And there's a pineapple sage getting ready to go in. And I have really enjoyed learning from Charles Dowding about this method of putting down the cardboard, putting on a layer of compost, and then planting right in it. It has worked well. These are two of my rhubarb plants that I have saved from last year that I started, and they're doing great this year. And I have also found that the aloe vera plants back there like being in some partial shade. So even though it hasn't started yet, this is where most of these plants, the rhubarb, they like to be. They get a lot of morning sun. They're somewhat shaded in the afternoon, which will matter a lot when our brutal summer sun comes here in the south. And I hope they'll survive again this year, now that I have them in the ground. In the front I've got a rose bush started, and then underneath this roll of chicken wire so that my kids and animals won't walk on it, I've got some garlic chives that I've started from seed, and I just saw yesterday that they have begun to come up ever so tiny back there. So I know those will take over pretty soon. But there are quite a few, if I can find them, the sprouts. Well, they are in there. I saw them yesterday when I was checking. And that's the front bed here on the left. There's my only other friend awake this morning. She has been great for catching skinks and mice and mole rats, but I cannot keep her out of my beds. I thought she didn't like the straw, but she started to get into those too, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we'll go over here now and look at the bed that we've put here in the front. Which I guess is the side of the driveway. It's a keyhole style raised bed, and in the middle I've got quite a few onion plants. A lot of them are up, some of them are starting. And then just yesterday I noticed I've outlined all the edges with bush beans, and finally I'm excited. Some of them are starting to come up. And when I measured it out, I have just a little bit more than a 50-foot row of beans. So I'm looking forward to getting those. And this was just from that raised bed that you can build at Home Depot. So we had 2 8-foot boards here across the front, connected with that post, and then 8-foot center, and then the backs are 4 feet wide and 4 feet deep, and then they just slide in there. I wanted them a little taller than the 6 inches it recommended, so I have about 10 feet here, and they're hammered in with rebar. The last several times it's rained, you can see what's washing out from underneath, though, all that dark on the cardboard and even into the gravel here on the driveway. So, but we're excited that some of the beans are starting to come up. All right. Over here on the side, I have this little Wisteria plant, which grows wild everywhere here, except we don't have any on our property. So when this front building is finished, I'm going to have a little awning put on with the trellis on the side that I'm hoping it will climb up and drape over. And then last week, my son finished the last two of these raised beds that are going to be out front here. I still haven't filled them. The back one was on quite a bit of a slope, so I had to raise that up and get it level. But I had filled the front bed. I'll take you over there. I'm sure you can see what it's got. It is the start of our asparagus bed. Now, since these are perennial and they're always going to be in here, I haven't decided, well, exactly what I'm going to put in to make them maybe look a little bit pretty. Maybe nothing. But I do have most of the front half filled with these. These are just the asparagus that I started from seed. This is their second year. So next year we'll be able to harvest some. But then the whole, probably back 2 rows, I don't have anything in. That's just like some of the tall ferns that have fallen over. And we'll probably end up putting, I think since this area gets a lot of sun and a lot of heat, I'm going to go ahead and put a big row of hot peppers along the back this year. Then I'll just remove them. I'll put in the last 2 rows of asparagus that I have right now started from seed. I'll put those in and let them overwinter here in the bed. And that's the plan for there. And then, like I said, this is this other bed that we will get filled, and I hope it'll be filled and growing by the time we come to our next garden walk. It was nice to see some of the nice things come up this spring that I had put in that last year. Had some bulbs, but of course the flowers are already spent. All right, let's head over to the big bed. Now this is the larger area that I have all the videos of cleaning out. We actually didn't know there were 2 areas back there. But we've got all those bramble canes and wild blackberries pulled out, weeds, got it covered with the cardboard, and then a layer of mulch is down. And I'll be growing a lot of our sprawlers, like I'll put our watermelon and things in again this year. But for now I do have a couple ornamental things in there. Another rose and some succulents. I think those are sedum, but this is directly across from that first one. And I'm gonna go ahead and put these lavender in probably today and let them start taking off. But here's this bed up top. We can probably see it better from down below on the pool deck. I was worried I had put them in early because we did get a couple low 40s nights again, but these are doing well. I wonder if you know what they are. These 3 I started and put them out as transplants. These are globe artichoke, and we should even be able to get some this year, and they should perennialize in our climate here. So I have these 3 that I started. from transplants. And then because there's this other area that does get sun. Hello, kitty. I did put a seed in last week, and it's up, so we'll see how it does. It's another thing I do. This is my weed tea that I'm working on. It's supposed to ferment and help feed your plants back a lot of the minerals that the weeds and other things that were growing fine have taken from the soil once it ferments. And it does smell, yes, terrible. All right, you've seen me say hello to Kitty this morning. She's my only friend out here so far. I have this raised bed, and it has straw covering as the mulch. I've got a lot of potatoes in there, and I'm glad to see them coming up. And for some reason, the cat leaves the straw mulch alone, or so I thought. Then directly across, I had put in a lot of the spring garden and spring vegetables. It's here behind the greenhouse, and it's in an area where there are several trees, so it gets good sunlight for growing, but it is in dappled sunlight, so it's filtered. So a lot of the cool weather vegetables have been doing good back here. As you can see, these are my rainbow Swiss chard that I started from seed, and they are just insane, and I get to eat out of them, you know, a couple of times a week. But I've had to cover it with all this netting, and even that, you know, and weighing it down with rocks is not keeping the cat out. She loves this. This has grass mulch on there, so I may come back and put in there with some of the straw to see if that helps. I've had to replant transplants in here about 3 times now. What has survived is all this Swiss chard, because it was larger when I put it in. And then over here, a couple of my pak choys, and they're doing well. They've survived the kitty scratching around in there, but I do need to get the nets off because they're heavy and they're weighing down some of my other items that I had, like well, a couple of the arugula are just gone forever, but I still have one maybe hanging on. Some purple sprouting broccoli, a couple kohlrabi, but they're spread so far apart. Those are the kohlrabi back there. They're spread so far apart now and they were more densely put in here, but I've just had to remove dead plants that she's scratched in. In fact, some of the nights I have to cover it with a pretty elaborate setup. You'll see when we go up to the strawberry bed. Here's my greenhouse, the back of it. It's 12 by 10. It did a great job this winter, but I will tell you, the plastic, I don't know if it's because of our heavy rains or heavy winds, but a lot of them, it literally has little holes and perforations where the chunks of plastic fell onto the plants, and it just didn't do good. But as far as did it ever pick up and blow away, never. It's not even staked, and it did great in there. All right, here's some of the longevity spinach that I brought back from Florida. I kept it here. It overwintered. I thought it died. That's why I left that dead looking stake in there to show you, but it did come back, and I've got several of those. The Gynura Procumbens longevity spinach. I like it raw, just thrown in salads. I really haven't cooked with it at all. I've got about 6 of those plants, and then also the Okinawan spinach, which is the one with the purple leaf, and it does not like the sun as much as the Gynura Procumbens. I'll step down here and look at those. So these are really nice, and these I do take and put in stir fries as well as eat raw, or just throw in a wrap or something. There's our kale, still doing good back there. And lots of our tomato starts. I've got them now out of the greenhouse so they can get used to the weather. A lot more up there on the deck. I won't call it a pool right now. It's still the cement pond because we do have a giant bullfrog in there that my daughter has caught twice, as well as a turtle. It could even be a snapping turtle. That's what the front of it looks like. I know you want me to pet you. Let's see, the ivy should continue to grow in there and fill up that little thing. This is another bed that's down here as you walk to the entrance to the cement pond. It was a jungle. So many brambles, so many trees that we took out. It looks like that one in the back left corner is trying to come back too. Here, those Bradford pears went ahead and naturalized, and they are heavy with thorns and they are all over. We are cutting them down daily. But I did make a start at putting in stuff where I had cleared out. Sad. Everyone take a moment. This is my pink grapefruit tree that I brought from Florida. Put it here and sheltered it, hoping it would make it, but I never covered it, and we did actually get a freeze, so it didn't make it. I'll have to put something else in. But in here, what does love this, these are Heuchera, and I put them in the fall, and they were so tiny. They're also called coral bells, and they are such a pretty silvery purple, and they are actually blooming. So I think I may try to divide that and get some more, because they like it back here in this corner. It's sunny right now in the morning, but it gets quite a bit of shade in the afternoon. Gonna finish taking out, like I said, that Bradford pear that's trying to come back there in the corner. Let's see. Oh, these are the peppermint. So that's what's in there, and it came back after it froze a bit in the winter. Okay. And those I'll plant out again with probably zinnia and nasturtium. That's our rosemary, still with us, still doing great. I took off at least a third of it just to put it in there. I had to build it up. This whole area is very low, and I've seen it under like an inch or two of water when we have heavy rains. I am finding a lot of gravel in the base. I think the previous owners noticed that too. But I did build up the rosemary, and I hope it'll like it here, because they don't like to have wet feet. Now, surrounding the daylily that I put there in the middle in the circle, and they did bloom last year when I bought them and put them in, those are dahlia tubers, and they completely died back to the ground in the winter, and then up from the rocks they came, and so I'm looking forward to having some pretty dahlias again this year. The sun's starting to come, so I don't know if I got out here early enough. And what are those? Oh, a couple more of the Okinawan spinach and the longevity spinach that we'll put out later. We have loved these. I'm going to try to get another couple to fill in the hole. I did take a cutting from one and move it down, but these are flame azaleas. I'll walk you over here to another one of my fermenting buckets. I have transplanted and put in, hello kitty, put in one, but I don't think that'll be enough to fill it in. I may get impatient and go ahead and buy another one. Okay, this is back at that potato bed. I'm looking down again. Probably won't be able to film much longer now that the sun's getting bright. Let's see. What else? Okay. We'll walk here. This is one side of the driveway. We have these two very prolific pear trees. They were awesome last year. We had to cut away probably from the base of each of them at least 3 other trees that had grown in, crowded them out, and shaded them. We just had a storm, and now their limbs are sprawling, so I've got some rope, and my son and I are going to work later today to tie them up. But walking through here, I plan to have a row here of blueberries. So we put in several little small ones last year, and they have taken off. This one is one of the pink lemonade blueberries, and it's got some, and they were so pretty when they were in bloom. They were one of the first things out this spring for the pollinators to come and enjoy. So they have survived last summer, fall, and winter, because we did put them in the spring. This one didn't. It's in like a main walkway where my kids run through back and forth, so I had to replace this one this spring. So it's just beginning. But these others, 2 that I got as plants from Baker Creek, and then 2 that I got of a different variety so they would cross-pollinate from Tractor Supply. I think these are the Climax ones, and they are loaded this year. I'm going to try to get out of the sun. So blueberries, they're good for you. They are not something I grew up eating or enjoying, but my kids love them now, so I'm glad. And I've learned to make myself like them. But yeah, this one, it's loaded. So we'll actually, get a good bit of them this year. And I'm going to go ahead and finish all the way to the end with a row of them. I've got some starts that I've done this spring. And then a lot of this area now is open and good for growing. Like I said, I'm going to put a lot of the watermelon and the squashes that I have in. That's one reason I have these tomato cages, not because I'm going to put tomatoes in there, but because it's to train them to stop walking where I'm going to be growing. Kind of a view of the back side of the azaleas. All this, it was just covered up in mostly wild blackberries and other kinds of weeds and tall trees and saplings that we had to get rid of. And so this will remain a walkway, and once the landfill opens up again, I will get some more mulch. That's where all this came from. I believe once the virus is done, they'll open back up. Oh, we didn't go look in the strawberry bed. I have it covered with rocks and lattice because this has been the bed my kitty loves to make her potty. So the netting wasn't enough, so I had to put this bamboo lattice over it because I have this side filled with potatoes, and it's really coming along as long as she doesn't scratch in it. And this I had to replace several and just throw out several strawberry plants that she killed scratching and pawing. But we've got some though that have berries on them. And I think here It's the back of another one of the 4 pear trees. And you can see the limbs are just almost touching the ground right now because of the tornadoes that we had. Oh, I don't want to forget about that. In here, I tried some air layering. So I came out in February, scraped away the bark, tried not to injure the cambium, wrapped it in the sphagnum moss, and I'm hoping that that will root because it's a really long new branch. And if it is, I'm going to be able to take it and give it to my neighbor, because I don't need any more pear trees right now. But I'll give it to my neighbor. Their house burned down just about a month ago, and so they're having to redo everything. So and some lemon balm that I've got tucked up in there. So for this time, this will finish up our first garden walk of the season, and I hope you enjoyed seeing what we have going on here, and that you'll come back again for the next update. Bye.